jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride one horse open sleigh. Jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride one horse open sleigh.
Say Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas!
Happy New Year.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas!
Say Happy New Year.
Happy New Year! Happy New Year!
My name is Father Andrew, and I am a Roman Catholic priest. After growing up on a ranch in northeast Wyoming, I went to college to be a software engineer. But God had other plans for me. He called me into seminary, and after studying theology and growing in my spiritual life for 6 years, I was ordained a priest for the Diocese of Cheyenne in May of 2016. I am the Roman Catholic priest.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Roman Catholic Priest. My name is Father Andrew Kinstetter, and it's been quite the hiatus from my last podcast, so welcome back and bear with us as we try to reboot this podcast. I'm joined today by my new co-host, Maria Ward.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
You're absolutely welcome. She's going to help me keep on track and not have these awkward pauses. So, Maria.
Yeah. I'm Maria Ward. I moved to Cheyenne in 2011, and I now work for the Diocese of Cheyenne as the Assistant Director of Pastoral Ministries. So I do our youth ministry, young adult ministry, and marriage and family life.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And she's literally across the alley from me.
It's true.
Because, long story short, I was transferred to the Cathedral of St. Mary in September. I was stationed at St. Stephen's, and I've been down here in Cheyenne since September, and that's how Maria and I kind of got to know each other and work together. And
fortunately, he brought his coffee setup along with him to Cheyenne, so I've been able to enjoy a few delightful lattes from the Father Andrew office here.
Absolutely. Speaking of that, if you're ever in Cheyenne and want a free cup of coffee, or a latte, or an espresso shot, or hot chocolate, or tea, just stop into the office at the Cathedral of St. Mary and I'll hook you up.
Raving reviews.
Father August says it's better than Starbucks, so
It's true.
No higher praise than that.
Cheaper, too.
That too. So today we want to kind of kick off this podcast by doing a Christmas and Advent sort of theme. We wanted to talk about traditions regarding various saints in Advent, but also Christmas traditions sort of in general. So we've got a few of them lined up and also just kind of our own experience with them.
It was sort of fun talking about these in preparation that, you know, obviously being Catholic, we celebrate the same saints, but both of us had very different experiences in which ones that we sort of grew up celebrating and which ones we did not.
Yep. So the one that Maria's going to talk about, I never did. So
the first one is Our Lady of Guadalupe, which is celebrated on December 12th. And I lived in southern Colorado for a few years, and in the Diocese of Pueblo, we had a huge mass at the cathedral on December 12th every year, and everyone would bring a rose or multiple to the mass, and that was just part of the celebration, was that everyone would bring up the roses and we'd present them to the statue of Our Lady of Guadalupe. And then they also had dancers that would come out and sort of recreate Juan Diego's experience, and it was just very reverent and beautiful and well attended in the culture down there of that was a big feast day for everyone. So it was quite the privilege to get to witness that. I think I went 3 years, so it was pretty cool.
And apparently that happens here in Cheyenne too.
It does. So at St. Joseph's Parish, they this year I know they started at about 4 a.m. with the dancers in the street, with their big elaborate costumes, and Father Carl was telling us that it continued on throughout the day, and then they have breakfast and just a great tradition and celebration of Our Lady.
And I'm quite sure they ended with Mass at about 7 p.m. or so that evening.
I think so, yeah.
So I was not able to attend those, but I think it was a pretty awesome celebration.
I think so, yeah.
Have you ever been to Mexico?
I have.
Have you been to the Basilica of Our Lady of Guadalupe?
I have not, but when I was in Mexico, I was there for the feast day of St. Anthony of Padua, which is also a very relevant saint in the Mexican culture. And so it turns out we went to Mass, and there was this huge fiesta happening afterwards that we were completely unaware of. And turns out we had missed the parade that morning that occurred. But that was... I had no idea how honored he was in the Mexican culture until I was there for that.
It's quite impressive, their celebration of the saints and various feast days. I've been to Mexico. I've been to the Shrine of Our Lady of Guadalupe.
Nice.
I was with a priest, and he actually took me into the sacristy and snuck me out into the sanctuary between masses.
Priest rebellion.
Right. I was a seminarian at the time, but as most people have to go on this little kind of conveyor belt underneath Our Lady of Guadalupe to see the image, I had front row seats in the sanctuary to see Our Lady. So,
very nice.
and a selfie with Our Lady of Guadalupe.
Of course.
So it was quite the cool thing. The other random thing that I experienced down in Mexico at that time, I was in Mexico right after the first of the year. So they celebrate the Epiphany almost in the way that we would kind of celebrate Christmas in terms of just kind of the commercialism and the citywide celebrations. It was quite interesting because we went, I think it was downtown Guadalajara, and it was either that or Mexico City, and they had kids dressed up as the three wise men that you could go get your picture taken with them.
How fun.
Like how we go get our picture taken with Santa, they had the wise men. I did not get a picture with them because I thought it was a bit awkward. But it was a really cool experience culturally that they have such an emphasis on the Epiphany where we have such the emphasis on Christmas.
Yeah.
So quite fun.
Yeah.
One of the other cool Christmas Advent sort of traditions that we have is St. Nicholas. And that was one that I always experienced growing up. We would always receive peanuts and an orange and a little toy in our stockings on December 6th. And of course the tradition for that also includes putting your shoes outside your bedroom and having candy or gold coins put in your shoe.
St. Nicholas was less healthy at our house, and we received chocolate every year in our shoes.
Nice. Yeah, at seminary we would do that. Stick your shoes outside the door, and you'd wake up in the morning and there's candy in them. But the tradition from that stems from St. Nicholas, who was a bishop in Myra in the 300s. Legend has him at the Council of Nicaea, where he supposedly slapped Arius as a sign of rebuke against the heresy that Arius was promoting. He was promoting that Jesus was not fully God. And the Council of Nicaea established that Jesus is of the same substance, consubstantial with the Father. But that's not where the tradition of the shoes and the stockings come from. That comes from a more another legend regarding St. Nicholas, where there was a man who had 3 daughters, and they were incredibly poor, and he thought that the only way to get some money to keep living was to sell his 3 daughters into prostitution. And St. Nicholas at that time took some gold coins, threw them in a bag, and threw him into the window of this house in the middle of the night and remained anonymous. And the man found the gold coins, was able to have enough money for the dowry for his first daughter so she could get married instead of being sold into prostitution. And the same thing happened with the second daughter and then the third daughter as well. So the gift-giving spirit of St. Nicholas is there. Some legends say that the gold coins in the bag fell into their shoes, in the house. You know, that's all sort of legend, and that's kind of where we get the whole idea of gifts, coins, chocolate thrown into stockings or shoes on December 6th. So for me, it was always December 6th, and of course, St. Nicholas has kind of morphed into the Santa Claus of today. So ideally, we all remember the saint behind the man Santa Claus?
I was always jealous of my dad because wearing a size 13 shoe, he got a little bit more candy than the rest of us.
Oh, and my stocking was always medium. I have an older brother and a younger brother, and Greg's was larger and Paul's was smaller, so...
Middle child syndrome
That's
right there. Another fun tradition that we always celebrated was St. Lucy or St. Lucia, and her feast day is December 13th, so right after Our Lady of Guadalupe. It was fun to find out that Father Andrew didn't know too much about St. Lucy or the traditions with that, because I have, for many years, been dressed as St. Lucy, and when my parents worked in the Catholic schools in St. Louis, I came home from college and put on a white dress and a red sash and put a crown with fake candles. I wasn't quite to the point of wanting real fire and candles in my hair, but walked through all the classrooms and told them about St. Lucy and sort of reenacted that tradition. Typically now she brings saffron buns in the shape of an S, would be sort of the traditional Swedish
And why?
version. I don't know why, but that's definitely what they do, and that's evolved a lot as well now too. That different countries will do different types of breads, but I think that's more of the Swedish, Scandinavian type of influence. But it used to be that before the calendars were formed, that St. Lucy was celebrated on the winter solstice. And so it was the festival of the light, because days then were getting longer. So that's why, she has the candles in her hair and everything.
Isn't she the patron saint of the blind?
She is. And there's, that sort of falls into the St. Nicholas legend part. I don't know if it's 100% approved that she, plucked her own eyes out or had them plucked out, but that was
because she was martyred as well, so that was all
right.
part of
that. But that was, she lived from 283 to 304, so again, our record keeping might lead more to legend than historical accuracy at that point. But
didn't have iPhones back then.
We didn't. Nope. They were not capturing that with live photos. But yeah, it's interesting, different cultures, even with her traditions, that they do things differently. Like in the Philippines, they will plant wheat, and then on Christmas, a few weeks later, the wheat will be sprouting, and they'll take it out and put it in the manger for Christmas. So that's kind of a cool thing as well, representing the light of Jesus coming into the world.
Speaking of light, Las Posadas.
Yeah.
That's another awesome Mexican tradition, one that we did in seminary. One that starts on December 16th, I believe, and goes to the 24th.
Which is 9 days to symbolize the 9 months of Mary's pregnancy.
And the whole idea is that you have a group of people with singers and people dressed up as Mary, Joseph, and some of the other people in that caravan, and they go to different houses, knock on the door, and are traditionally denied room because St. Joseph and Mary were denied lodging at the inn, where then they would go to different houses and sing songs along the way. And from what I was reading, we didn't do this at seminary, we only did it for one night, but I think in the tradition they would end with Mass at a particular house and then do that for 9 days leading up to the Nativity of our Lord on the 24th. And then, of course, everybody holds lighted candles along the way to kind of symbolize that procession and journey and the coming of the light of Christ.
Yeah, I think it's a beautiful tradition. One thing to note that most of the times, the dates don't change, right? And so normally this is cold for for our climate here, and so sort of the perseverance of people of being willing to go out and stand in the cold and participate in this tradition every night for 9 evenings, just for the sake of, because this is what we do to celebrate and commemorate, I think is awesome.
Yeah, something that we don't often see in the American culture.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's something that you see all the time down in Mexico and Central America. I was in Guatemala, and they had Eucharistic processions for the Feast of Corpus Christi that would last all day, and they would go throughout the entire city. And here in America, that just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So I think we're missing out on that aspect of kind of that public witness. But
Absolutely. Well, in Los Angeles for Our Lady of Guadalupe, they do have processions through the street in her honor, and they start very, very early in the morning as well for those. So, again, it's pretty much the Mexican culture and tradition.
But it's also because their culture is so much more universally Catholic than the American culture. So there's a lot more openness to that sort of thing happening in the city versus here where we have all these kind of rules and, you have to get permission and everything to kind of do these sorts of things. And so...
Yeah, it is pretty neat. In Indianapolis, for the National Catholic Youth Conference that they hold every 2 years, they do a Eucharistic procession at that as well. So 20,000 teens
Down
and
the streets?
chaperones. Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah, so they go from the church to the convention center. So it's not a very long one, but still kind of a cool thing to say that you've been a part of.
Yeah, absolutely. So perhaps my favorite tradition that we're going to talk about today would be the Christmas tree. Often tradition around the Christmas tree dates back to kind of the ancient Roman world where there's sort of a pagan sun god that's dying, so to speak, with the winter solstice approaching because the sunlight is less and less, and somehow the evergreens held in the home would somehow help the sun get through that sickness. I didn't look that up too much because that's not quite the Christian origins of that tradition. But the Christian origins of this tradition is pretty darn awesome. It involves Thor, the same Thor that we see in all the Marvel movies. And it involves Saint Boniface, who was a bishop in the 700s. And as tradition and legend has it, Saint Boniface was evangelizing in Germany and was coming to a little town that had a tree that was sacred to Thor. And they were going to sacrifice a child to Thor on Christmas Eve. And so St. Boniface came with his staff, a crozier, and so he managed to get to this village in time to stop the sacrifice, and he took an axe and started to chop down the tree, and a wind gust blew the tree over. And so this was St. Boniface, in essence, proclaiming to the people there that Thor is not the real God. He would not be struck down by lightning. And that the God that he proclaimed, the Christian God, was truly the divine God. And so then legend has it after the tree fell down, it split into 4 pieces, and they used that to build a chapel there. And he also saw a small fir tree, little evergreen tree, and told the people to bring that tree into their homes as a symbol for the light of Christ, to celebrate the birth of Christ. The tree points to heaven, to eternity, and the evergreen nature of the tree also symbolizes eternal life. So that is sort of the legend behind the origins of the Christmas tree. It's kind of course, morphed throughout the years, and adding lights and decorations to the tree all kind of came later. But it's kind of the origins of it, and a pretty cool story. Thor does not win, God does. Sorry, all you Marvel fans out there. But I love Christmas tree, and I love evergreens in decoration for Christmas.
Did you grow up with a fake tree or with a real tree?
So we grew up with a real tree.
Okay.
We got a fake tree sometime when I was in junior high or high school. So as a kid, we always had a real tree. And had to water it and clean up all the needles. And it was really cool to have that as a kid. I didn't know anything else. But now I have a fake tree myself, and so it's quite nice to not have to clean up after it, but have still the look and the symbolism there. And that, and I also have an Advent wreath up in my room, and I will have a nativity scene come Christmas.
Very nice. We have an artificial tree as well. We sort of fall into the same category as well, as my husband had many allergies, so best to not chance it with bringing in more nature than necessary.
Did you grow up with a real tree?
No, we had an artificial tree growing up as well, and yeah, I'm good with that. I know here in Wyoming, growing up in St. Louis, we didn't have, snow-covered mountains that you could legally climb up on and go chop down any tree you wanted. So that was sort of a new experience when I moved out here, and people, told me, oh, well, this land over here, you can go and pick any tree you want. And oh, yeah, we didn't have that. So just for availability's sake, I feel like artificial trees made more sense. So.
Mm-hmm. So, real important question. When did you open Christmas presents?
It sort of changed. So my dad was ordained a permanent deacon when I was in 2nd grade. So after that, we were sort of at the mercy of whenever he was helping with Mass. And so it sort of changed, but typically we did it on Christmas morning. Okay. As we got older, like in our teenage years, he would have midnight Mass, and so then at approximately 2 a.m. we would open our Christmas presents. Everyone would go to bed, and we'd sleep in, and that was pretty nice. I enjoyed that, but we never really did it on Christmas Eve.
And I totally grew up opening presents Christmas Eve. We would always go to the children's Mass, and gosh, when those homilies were long, it was killer as a kid.
The anticipation.
Because as soon as we got home, that was when we would rush into the living room and open up all our Christmas presents. Now, I know that as a kid I probably didn't sleep in, but Mom and Dad probably got to just a little bit on Christmas morning.
Probably, yeah.
So.
Yeah. Did you guys ever do a Jesse tree?
No. So that was something that I've only heard about really probably since coming into seminary and becoming a priest. My mom is doing it now more so. She's been helping with various things, RCIA and First Communion up in Moorcroft, and she was putting together a Jesse tree with some of the kids that she's working with.
Nice.
But yeah, I never knew that tradition until recently.
That's awesome. We're doing one at the Chancery right now, so that's been sort of fun. Of when we gather together for prayer, we add in our Jesse tree. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Any other random traditions surrounding Christmas for you guys?
I don't think so. We usually had different types of Advent calendars, be it one with little chocolates or a little felt depiction of a nativity scene that every day you'd add a shepherd or a sheep or angel. So we typically did those leading up to Christmas.
Anything unique in the food realm for Christmas?
Not really, but I hear your family has a pretty strong pie tradition.
Yeah, so for Thanksgiving and Christmas, lemon meringue pie is our go-to. And I don't know why. It just has always been that way. My grandma used to make a fantastic lemon meringue pie. And so I think she would just make it for Thanksgiving, and I assume just kind of make it again for Christmas. But like pumpkin pie, never a thing. My older brother likes it now. I still don't like it. So even this Christmas, a friend of mine's making my family a lemon meringue pie and a strawberry rhubarb pie.
Very nice.
Because my mom just isn't quite the pie maker. She makes wonderful desserts as long as it's not pie.
Okay.
So, sorry, Mom. It's okay. She knows it. Because when my grandma had to stop making pies because she moved into an assisted living, we started going to Perkins to get pies.
Oh, okay.
So,
had to outsource, huh?
We had to. That and the other random tradition that we have regarding food, and again, I don't know why this is, but Mom would always make tapioca on New Year's Eve.
Oh, on New Year's. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay.
I'm going to have to ask her why, because I don't know.
Huh. That's kind of cool.
So, I don't think there's any symbolism in it, but it's tapioca.
Can't argue with that.
Yeah. Anyways, I think that's all we got for you today.
Yeah.
Hopefully we're going to do this every month or so. Maria's going to help me co-host and keep myself from monologuing too much.
Realistically, I'm just scheduling things.
She's moral support. It's helpful. So ideally, you'll see this hopefully monthly rather than a year-long hiatus. Mm-hmm. And until then, you can follow us along at my website, RomanCatholicPriest.com. It's ROAMIN, CatholicPriest.com. And you can also find me on social media, on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. And so,
yeah, and we'd love to hear about your Christmas
right.
traditions too. So leave us a comment below and let us know what your family does, if you've done any of these or anything else that we didn't talk about today.
absolutely. So, until next time, I don't know how to end this.
Bye.
Bye.